Hello and welcome to the Apple Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Wesley Hilliard, and I'm joined once again by William Gallagher. Our sponsors this week are NordLayer and Insta360. If you're an Apple Insider Plus subscriber, you don't hear anything about ads. Instead, you're going to get an ad-free show, and this week we're going to be talking about the visionOS 3 wishlist. I think we're going to be doing these every week until WWDC. My visionOS 3 wishlist got published a couple of days ago, and so we're going to go over a few of my ideas, and it's one you may have already heard if you listened to our macOS wishlist last week, so that'll be fun. That's going to be after the show, but first let's dive in. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a Johnny Ive wedding announcement, I think, to get to, and but first we're going to start with WWDC. What's going on, William?
Sorry, I wasn't listening. I'm playing Fortnite. I just get to the end of this level, and then I've no idea. I presume there are levels in Fortnite. I've never even touched it. That's what's going on. Fortnite's there. WWDC is vastly more interesting, but clearly Google I/O just wiped the floor with Apple. In fact, I'm not even sure Apple will carry on with WWDC after whatever it was Google announced. I missed what they announced. Was it important?
No, I don't know. We'll get into it because I watched the whole stream and it was an acid trip of AI and a lot of things that people are praising and saying, oh, it's now life-altering and beautiful and Google is ahead again. I don't know, but we'll get to it. WWDC, Apple released their schedule, so obvious, usual stuff. People show up, they eat some breakfast. There's going to be a keynote at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Then they'll go to the State of the Union. And great. That's the whole deal. I'm excited for WWDC. It's going to definitely be, as usual, a packed show like we've been getting into in our predictions. I wonder how much AI is going to be in there, if they might go full force or tone it back. But are you excited for this event?
I always am, but this time actually more than ever, particularly because of the Mac stuff. I mean, I know we're talking visionOS in App Insider Plus, and that's the big new platform. It's obviously going to be interesting. And of course, all the newest new stuff comes to the iPhone because that's Apple's biggest thing ever. But I relish updates to the Mac. And it feels like for the last few years, we've had nice updates, but not massive updates. So maybe there'll be something brilliant this time. Although you mentioned the State of the Union thing there, and every year I intend to watch that, but I'm so busy on App Insider writing about what they said in the keynote that I don't tend to catch it for the next couple of days. And I think sometimes it's as interesting as the keynote. So I'm setting out to watch it properly this time as it happens.
You know, this year's been a controversial year, a couple years for Apple and developers. And, you know, Worldwide Developer Conference is a conference about developer relations, and there's definitely, if you're on social media and follow tech, you're going to see a lot of tech people talking about how angry developers are with Apple. But I always wonder if that's our own little echo chamber, actually, and because the wider developer community, I think, is still pretty excited about Apple. They go and cheer at the keynotes and attend these events, and I see a lot of. I follow as many developers as I can find, usually because I find it interesting seeing how they go from concept to app, and I like seeing their progress and joining their test flights and stuff. So, in case you were wondering, it's not always the case that everyone's just so angry at Apple lately. I don't know what it is. I mean, I understand that I am an Apple fan, and I can come across defensive, but this stuff lately just has lit a fire under some of the more vocal people, and I just find it amusing. It feels like the keyboard thing again, or anytime there's a easy low-hanging fruit to pick at Apple about it, it kind of turns into this whole zeitgeist, and I'm just over here like, it's bad. Like, Apple makes poor decisions sometimes, and they do silly things in court, of course. They are not a monolith. They're run by humans. They make mistakes. But I'm still going to buy the iPhone this fall. So
I think developers have more criticisms than maybe you think. I can't remember who I was listening to, and they were laying out how they felt like Apple was doing this stuff that was great for the end user, the consumer, but wasn't seeing the developers as a type of customer, and so there was sort of communication, and that made sense. But you're right. If Apple does something, like the other day, I was talking to somebody about trackers and how Apple got into such hot water over the this anti-stalking problems with AirTags when they came out. But Tile had been out doing nothing at all against stalking for 7, 8 years. Apple comes in with anti-stalking features, as it turns out not enough, but a lot of them in there. Hot water on Apple, and Tile finally says, oh yeah, well, we should probably do something about that. But it's just something about Apple attracts every possible microscope, because it's a self-fulfilling thing in that because it gets so much attention, anytime there's a headline about them, you know you're going to get clicks through the article. So as long as you can find a way to make it sound panicked or vital or Apple is doomed, then we're going to keep seeing that attention, whether it's warranted or not, I think.
Yeah, and Apple's always been kind of a weird thing, especially in our beat, just covering them. You get a snippet of a piece of a court document suggesting that they're going, like, it's like every step. It's the court sues, and then Apple appeals, and then the court reverses the appeal, and it's like every step of the way we're talking about it, and I'm over here just scratching my head. I'm like, I know this is interesting to some degree, but at the same time, who is following it this closely? Like, who cares? Because at the end of the day, the average user is still just going to go out here and buy an iPhone and use it. Like, this court proceeding really isn't changing anything about how the devices work, except for, maybe what Epic's going through. And even then, it's such a, on the grand scheme of things, minor change that is good for customers, but do they even notice it's happening? And I don't think so. I did see, though, when Epic returned Fortnite to the App Store and Apple was forced to allow it because of basically a court order, there was some celebration there. So it's funny how what affects people and what doesn't, what gets out of our sphere and what doesn't. And WWDC is one of those things that's just, it kind of brings it all to a head and makes it this super focused thing that Apple is making poor decisions. And here we are at a conference celebrating developers with Apple playing a cheesy video at the front telling them how much they love developers. And yet it seems at every turn they also make decisions that go against what developers actually want. So it's just, I don't know, it's all at odds with each other. And I just, maybe that's why we cover this stuff. I just find it all very interesting.
I'm with you there, except you really downplayed the bravery of Epic Games, who fought for the little person for 5 years to get absolutely no difference to us at all and possibly potential profit for them. But they did it for us. Don't diminish Epic. They're our heroes, really. How long can I keep this one going before... Yeah, okay. But yes.
Well, we'll get to Fortnite in just a second. Honestly, because all these things are parallel, so it's kind of hard to choose which one's next. But I wanted to get into Google I/O a little bit because WWDC should be where Apple kind of reaffirms its commitment to AI and what it's doing. And simultaneously, somehow, in its 2-hour keynote or whatever, they're going to also announce every update to every operating system. There are 5 now, correct? And each of them are apparently getting significant redesigns on top of new AI features, on top of standard new features, right? So it's a monolith of a thing that they're trying to maneuver. Google split theirs in 2. They announced Android stuff over like a 30-minute keynote they threw in the trash a couple weeks ago. And they're just like, yeah, Android, so who cares? And moved on. I'm sorry. I understand this sounds biased, but it really is just the fact that I don't use Android. I'm sure there's some useful things in there, but from what I observed, I don't remember anything if it's coming to Android except they're getting live activities, which is cool. That live activities are fun. But they're apparently working on making Material UI more universal, and there's some ideas behind these transparent type design things, but not really. There was some kerfuffle before their Android announcement saying, "Ooh, they beat Apple to the punch. They're going to go full transparency and all this stuff." And it's like, not really. They didn't go that far over. So they're actually making very pointed design decisions that I compared on social media to Comic Sans, and because
harsh, very harsh there.
I'll have to find the image, and because I'm sure you agree, and I understand the image is pulled from a document explaining this is how wild and crazy developers can get with our design tools, and it's just very outlandish calendars and clocks and widgets and things, and just very as far removed from Apple design as you can get, and it just was bad in my opinion. But if you want your phone to be ugly, Android has a way to do it. That's what I took away from Android is they're expanding their universal design language and material, and they're adding live activities. All right, I might be wrong. There's probably more, but the big focus, the main keynote, 2 hours, where they said AI, I think 91 times by their count, was just that. No, like they mentioned Android in passing, but there was no mention of like individual apps really. They didn't even do like any big demos other than the AI technology itself. So I wonder if Apple should probably take a page out of Google's book and have a separate AI event in the future rather than drowning out their developer conference, right? Because how much will AI actually play a part in development? And we'll get to that in a second. But did you catch this keynote at all?
Yeah, let me put it this way. Would you like to guess what I took away from this and the Android announcements? All of it.
No, sure. What's your takeaway? Did you...
I took nothing from it.
Oh.
I didn't even realise that Android was a couple of weeks ago. So nothing reached me at all for it. So I would have expected to have come across a headline about something, but even live activities I would have noticed, I'd have thought, but no, I missed it completely, and I just assumed this week's thing was covering everything and there was nothing to say about Android at all. So, okay, but AI stuff, 91 references in 2 hours is just under once per minute, so that seems quite, restrained compared to some people. Did they change the world in those 2 hours?
Well, it's because in between the words AI, they have to use like an encyclopedia of superfluous like adjectives to describe how wonderful and magnificent and beautiful and amazing and life-altering the AI will be. I understand it sounds like I'm bashing it, maybe a little bit, but like these Google keynotes, man, they're just so rough compared to Apple's. I dropped in an image, by the way, of their design deck for Android in case you wanted to look at that. So Google AI, we get it. Gemini is a direct competitor to ChatGPT, so now everything needs to be AI. And the biggest announcement they made that maybe went by without too much attention from the keynote, they did make a big deal out of it, but they had so much to say they moved on from it very quickly, was that AI mode is coming to search. So basically, Google just Sherlocked themselves and just destroyed the entire search industry all at once with a button on Google search that replaces I'm feeling lucky with AI search. And if you type in a prompt, no matter how complex, this is what's interesting, you can put in a paragraph of a prompt into Google search and hit the AI mode, and it will return results as an AI. And then somewhere in there, in subtext, there might be some reference material, but of course no one's clicking those. We've seen studies showing that people get their AI result and move on. So yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. One thought that the artwork you sent me will be the chapter artwork, so we can all have a look at this work. But then also, I don't know what it is about Google and AI at the top. I've come to train myself to not bother with the AI results for it. I don't know if I found they were just wrong at first, or I somehow, in a way, it felt like I've come to search something. Please let me find it. And it used to be that you got the results. Then it was you got a page full of ads first. And now you're getting the AI before the page of ads, before the results. So it just drives me further and further away from
AI
Google.
mode is getting ads. So even if you do a search result with AI mode, you're going to have ads there, so Google can make their money. There's still no word on how anyone else is supposed to make money with this.
All right, but Google
theft of the world's information. Google's going to be fine.
I'm relieved there. Clearly, okay. Where will we be without Google?
Of course,
yeah.
There's also Google Gemini. It's more powerful. There's a lot to get into. We're not going to dive into every little feature, but it can do more stuff. Great. $250 a month subscription if you want it. So more money for Google. They wanted to match ChatGPT's subscription tiers. So there you go.
Yeah, I did not realize ChatGPT costs that much either. Maybe I'm just a miser, but I'm using mostly all the free versions of everything. And the other day I put the same. I was genuinely trying to find something out, trying to figure out something, and I just tried ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, even Microsoft Copilot. I tried them, and I didn't have to pay for any of it, and it got me varying the degrees of accurate results for it. So what do I get that's worth $250 a month, did you say?
I guess a full production studio. It is a lot of tools. Like you're getting unfettered access to Gemini's generation features. There's a new video tool called Flow. It can generate 8 seconds of video that look hyper realistic with voice acting over top of it. So one of their examples was give me an owl talking to a squirrel or something, or some other animal, having a conversation, and it was an 8-second clip, and the owl had a distinct voice and the other animal had a distinct voice, and they just said something odd and silly and they flew away or whatever. But it worked. I've seen there's a lot of studies going into this already. Aftermath, I believe, is it after? It's not. No, Aftermath's the gaming one. What am I thinking of? The independent.
After Effects? No.
The independent journalists.
Premiere stuff.
That 404 Media, they did a study on Flow already, and they found that I don't know if anyone's paying attention, but if you ask it to make a comedian telling a joke, it always tells the same joke, no matter how you word it. And it's,
Okay.
We went to the zoo the other day, but there was only one animal there. It was a Shih Tzu, right? The dog.
Okay.
So,
Right.
yeah,
Well,
and that's not a
exactly
curse. We
Milton
don't have to
Jones
bleep it.
level, but
It's a dog.
Okay.
But so it's stupid. It's an ancient dad joke, but it's apparently the only joke that it can tell. But what's crazy is when you give it the prompt, it makes an 8-second video, and depending on how you phrase it, it changes like ever so slightly. You get a slightly different comedian and a slightly different venue. But what's always the same and what's always eerie is how the comedian speaks, and at every pause, there's an abrupt, just jarring amount of laughter and applause. And if there is audience members in view, the applause doesn't match what the audio is playing. So it's still early days, but it is impressive in its own right how powerful it is. Someone did do the thing where they said, make a news anchor say something terrible happened, and it did, and it was very convincing. The only thing it lacked was the Chiron thing that it goes along the bottom and the logos everywhere. So you can make some very convincing 8-second videos, and if you think that's it's only 8 seconds, well, there's an entire Flow studio where it understands scene to scene and maintains continuity. And you can stitch these together using prompts and make longer form video. And that's what you're getting for part of your subscription anyway. And I think the more you pay, the more access you get and all that stuff.
Okay, that is impressive. I mean, slightly scary and frightening. And I feel I've now heard their entire repertoire of jokes, so I don't need to pursue that one. But still, impressive. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, very silly joke. But my question is there was a lot announced, all right? So, we could talk Android XR a little bit. They brought out their demo glasses again, and it's the same demo we've seen before. I'm glad that journalists finally got to take photos of it with the thing active, because at a certain angle you can see a bright glowing orb in the person's eyeball, because obviously it's transparent glass. This feels very Google Glassy in a good way, except it does again mean, like, if you're interacting with another human and suddenly a giant glowing orb shows up in their eye, that's going to be a new social norm we're going to have to accept of, are they ignoring me? Are they reading a text right now? Are they interacting with their AI companion? I wonder how that's all going to come across. Google's partnered with Warby Parker and some other companies, Monster or something, to design glasses that work with this. And I love Warby Parker. They're the ones I buy glasses from. So cool. I'm glad they're working on making these things look good. But the overall interaction is very, and the interface is optional. Yeah. You can have it be just a set of glasses like Meta's glasses, where you have basically speakers and a microphone that sit by your ears, and the rest of it is just glasses, right? That's how Meta's Ray-Bans work. You can do that without the screen, and it all works identically. All you get in the screen is a text interface, a waveform when you're speaking to AI, and it can bring up things like maps. It is a full pixel display, so it can do like imagery, but it's very transparent and odd.
I gotta say, I'm quite intrigued by that. Yeah,
it feels like Apple actually, like I mentioned this before in the show, they should probably do something here. It might be early days. I do find it weird that people are so obsessed with what's essentially a pair of AirPods with lenses.
Right.
Because I wear glasses and AirPods, and I get the same features as Meta Ray-Bans, right? Like, I get eyesight and an assistant I can talk through my AirPods. Great, I guess. The difference being that certain sets of hardware have cameras you can take a photo. Their demo unit had a camera, which I think is also optional. So, fine. It's all early stuff. I think Android XR experimenting in this way is another affirmation of that this is where technology is going. Google Glass was, poorly envisioned, priced, and rolled out and a decade ahead of its time, but social norms have shifted, and I think this is going to catch on. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something from Apple in the next couple of years, because Ming-Chi Kuo keeps talking about AirPods with cameras, which as earbuds doesn't make any sense, but as a wearable set of glasses, I think that makes sense.
I thought the point of the AirPods with cameras was not that it was, can record things, but it was more like environment sensing, that it would be in some way aware of your surroundings better.
If it is a set of AirPods and not glasses, that is, I think, the use case. It's not going to have like forward-facing cameras that like stick out of the side of your head or something. That would be weird. So there's a lot going on here.
Image of people walking up to me and then turning my head saying, "Say that again on camera," kind of thing. It's just automatically threatening.
That Star Trek guy who has like the wraparound thing on the back of his head. And
Geordie LaForge with the visor. Yeah. Yes.
No. Even not him. Not the visor. More of the kind of just the back headband that comes out to a point by the sides of your temples. That kind of decoration I've seen in sci-fi, maybe not Star Trek. But the forward-facing horns are basically just giant cameras and a flashlight that just point at people aggressively, just very aggressive. And every 30 seconds,
being on a date doing that. Yes, okay, but yes,
every 30 seconds it announces that you're on camera. Anyway, I'll say something nice. Google I/O was very boring, but it had a lot of interesting stuff. It had obvious advancements in their AI technology. They're clearly competing well with ChatGPT. And there's a lot of stuff in there that people are going to get a lot of use out of. Like, I am not anti-AI by any stretch. I joke a lot, but I'm not actually even anti-Google in a lot of ways. I just don't really like the way that they monetize their platforms and how they destroyed the web with ads. But outside of that, Android is an interesting ecosystem, and I like that they're advancing so quickly. This stuff, I hope, is a good spur, at just as with OpenAI stuff we'll get into later, is going to be a spur for Apple, and that's what competition is for.
This episode is brought to you by NordLayer, the business network-ready access control and threat protection from the makers of NordVPN, the leading VPN for personal use. Your business needs this protection, even if you didn't have to have it to meet industry regulatory requirements for security compliance. You need NordLayer so that you can get on with your business instead of losing time and maybe losing data through phishing, ransomware, and malware attacks. NordLayer lets businesses monitor the health of all its team's devices and user activity and network events. It spots threats before they can escalate. The company uses dark web monitoring. It handles data breach prevention and breach management. NordLayer is about zero trust network access, granting access only to the right users, and even then, only under the right conditions. All this, and it takes 10 minutes to set it up. There's no hardware to install, and NordLayer works with existing setups on all the major platforms. Plans start from just $8 per user per month, and there are special rates for teams with over 50 members. But then there's also an exclusive offer for Apple Insider listeners. You can get up to 22% off NordLayer's annual plans, plus another 10% with coupon code AppleInsider 10. That's coupon code Apple Insider, one word, all lowercase, -10. Go to nordlayer.com/Apple Insider to save right now. And thanks to NordLayer for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
As far as Apple, so I've seen a lot of comparisons to Apple and Google again this week with I/O's announcements, and I guess that poses the question again: is Apple now hopelessly behind? Is this proving that Apple just cannot compete in the artificial intelligence space?
Why didn't Apple buy Johnny Ive's startup, the one with Sam Altman? I mean, the fact that Sam Altman and he were doing it meant Sam Altman's OpenAI was obviously more likely to buy it. But why didn't Apple swoop in with $10 billion and grab it if it's so hot and so far advanced?
I'll get into that when we get to it, but I'll give a hint now. It's because AI hardware is an absolute failure, and it will continue to be an absolute failure.
Oh, you only say that because of the Humane AI pin, the rabbit, and a third one that was so bad I can't even remember the name of, or even if it existed. But apart from every device that's been issued so far, yeah, okay, I see your point. Okay.
So We'll get to that in a second, because Johnny Ive is actually pitching this as a third device that doesn't replace your iPhone, which makes sense. I don't think he would want to replace his lovely creation. But he isn't afraid of cannibalization, but I think he has an attachment to iPhone, even though he's left Apple. But the AI stuff, as far as Apple being behind, I will stay in the same argument here. Is Apple behind at image generation? Yes. Like, their image playground is a joke compared to what is being done by these other companies. And now they're just doing straight up video at a very fast pace in a way that is terrifying. I would love to see what Apple Intelligence would try to do by making a video right now. It would be very bad, at least by what we have in our face today. We don't know what Apple's doing internally, and that's the difference. Right, everything Apple is doing. What does Apple Intelligence look like today internally at Apple? Nobody knows except for Apple, and we won't know maybe until WWDC, if then. They just don't announce things until they're in public's hands, or at least in beta. So usually, last year was an anomaly. So the question remains of, like, is Apple ever going to catch up? Who knows? I still think that we're kind of at a peak AI. But what about all these new Google announcements? They're refinements of existing technologies. I didn't see anything at Google I/O that wasn't already being done. They're just doing it better, faster, more efficiently. With it's still not reasoning. It's still not thinking. these models aren't alive, right? And we're never going to get there. That's just not how this technology works. So as it stagnates, as it reaches this peak point of use cases anyway, Apple will have a chance to ramp up its offering over time. And I'm really interested in seeing what they do at WWDC because I think they're starting from a better place. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I'm thinking about WWDC in particular. It would look bad for Apple if they didn't mention Apple Intelligence. But like you were saying earlier, they have so much else to cover. I just remember last year Apple Intelligence seemed to be kind of riddled through everything else. Also, in the iPhone launch, it was very peculiar. It seemed to step away from the iPhone 16 to do an infomercial about Apple Intelligence. So they're obviously committed to it publicly. They have to say something, but
it's going to be all over WWDC. Absolutely.
Tim Cook seemed, what did he say in the earnings call? That things were just taking longer than they expected. That feels like, well, I mean, he's never going to say anything that gives away anything. But the implication I took away at the time was that we're getting there with what we've said. He didn't seem to hint that there was anything else coming this year. And I think I have a sense the year before he did. We came in knowing Apple Intelligence was going to be announced. This time they seem to be keeping quiet or quieter about it. Is that because they haven't got anything or because they learned a lesson?
Well, they're publishing a lot of research papers, which are interesting, like training robots on humans and stuff like that. Like, really interesting stuff. But so here's my argument, and you can take it or leave it, listeners. But as a longtime Apple fan myself, and as I'm sure many listeners on the show, probably decades longer than me in some cases, they've seen this all before. I know, William, you know, we've seen this all before. And I'm going to bring up the one that I remember, and that was Apple is so far behind Android because it can't do widgets. It can't do this text field thing. My keyboard doesn't vibrate when I type or whatever it have you.
Yeah.
Like in 2013, 2014, the OS wars between iOS and Android were all basically Apple is so bad at operating systems. Their home screen is just a grid of icons. This is all terrible. And Android is just showing us the all the things you can do with an operating system on a phone. And why isn't Apple doing any of these cool things? Why is it when I look away from my device, my video doesn't automatically pause, right? And Samsung was airing all these ads, making fun of how terrible Apple was. Meanwhile, iPhone users, for the most part, were like, actually, we quite like it. It's nice. It's simple. It gets things. I open my phone. I open an app. I get the thing done. I'm not thinking about which clock widget I'm going to choose.
Yes.
Right. And that was kind of the discourse.
I do have an exception to that, which is right in the very first. I think the earliest example of all this is why doesn't the iPhone have copy and paste? Because it didn't for the first 18 months or so. I thought that was a completely legitimate criticism. Yeah, at the time, I didn't mind that much, and I don't understand why now, but I didn't. So maybe it's what you're used to, but that was a real.
Well, it's. Yeah. I just find it interesting because we've had all of these conversations before, and you look back at iOS and Android, and we know why Apple was in the position it's in, and why it's in the position it is today. It started closed, and only opened things up when they had infinite assurances from all their testing that it would be safe, secure, and private and live up to their expectations of performance, consumer privacy, and usefulness, right? And meanwhile, Google's churning through 100 features a day, starting and shutting down entire companies in matters of minutes, and Apple is taking a more tamed approach. Now, apply that to AI, okay? I get it. AI is moving so fast, right? Between 2022 and today, it is basically decades worth of technological innovation in a short period of time. And Apple is over here still correcting grammar, and that's their Apple Intelligence feature. I get it. From an outside standpoint, it's like, what is Apple doing? They're just over here doing nothing, basically. They're still in day zero the 2019 version of ChatGPT or whatever. And my answer to that is they're starting closed, and OpenAI and Google and Gemini are starting wide open, and at some point they're going to meet in the middle, because AI, as we've seen it, as it's being regulated, it started too open, it dangerously open. There's a lot of bills coming out over the dangers of AI and what it has done to people in their lives, between suicides and thefts and money and intellectual property. So they started wide open, and of course doing way more damage than an operating system ever could. So not only are they moving faster and breaking more things, it's having more implications that they started wide open. And, burning energy and, draining water resources to cool plants and all of these things, like XAI taking over, Memphis with their
Yes.
pollutive generators, and just move fast, break things all over the place. And they're accomplishing a lot by moving fast and breaking things. Meanwhile, Apple over here is saying, you know what? The rest of you can go ahead and do what you want. We're going to move slowly, closed, secretively, and release things when they're ready. It's their entire code. It's how they've always done it. And it maybe just feels slower than ever before because everyone else is moving so fast. But I think there is going to be this point where Apple just is like, and here's what we've been doing. And it's going to be shock and awe all over the place. And then within a year, everyone will have forgotten about how far behind Apple was. So that's my standpoint here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Apple actually is incapable of doing any of this, which I don't believe for a second. I just say be patient. And I'll remind everyone again, I'm using Apple Intelligence stuff every day. It's on my devices. I'm correcting my text and stuff with it. I'm getting summaries. It has its use cases that are useful. I'm not generating emojis or anything, but it's there and it's useful in its own way. It's not intrusive. It's not destructive. It's green. And it's theoretically not stealing anything to get this done, other than what it's already taken from the free and open internet, I guess. But I'm fine with that because I'm also not really using any of these other tools actively. I don't have ChatGPT on anything. I'm not interacting with a chatbot or falling in love with one anyway. I'm not paying OpenAI $250 a month to do whatever it is you do with that. I'm not generating 8-second videos of talking animals. I just personally don't have a use case for any of those things. I'm sure people do, but Apple Intelligence is the only one I'm using, and it's effective. So is Apple behind? I guess it depends on who you ask.
Yesterday, I was about to cook something from a recipe, and I thought, what if I ask AI to take a shot of this and just take all the text out, the ingredients, the instructions, put them into plain text, and then I can pop them all into Paprika, the recipe app that I use. And I did all of this, and it took some fiddling for various things, and it all worked fine. And after about 5 minutes of thinking this through and doing it, I found the same recipe was already in Paprika. So I'm using more than you, but uselessly. So, yeah, there's that.
So, well, no, it's not useless. That's what's interesting is all of this stuff, Google and OpenAI shouting from the mountaintops about how cool they are, right? And how fast they're breaking the world and everything. They're just super excited about destroying everything. Meanwhile, Apple working quiet in the background. I'm happy using AI as a tool, and I'm happy actually having it be invisible. I don't need it to be a glowing rainbow around the edge of my device every time I use it. When I use FoodNoms to take a photo of my dinner so it can log my estimated calorie and other metrics of intake for my Apple Health application, I'm pretty sure it's calling out to a version of one of these models. I think he uses maybe a ChatGPT model. I'm not sure. So technically, by extension, I'm using ChatGPT, I guess, but that's not how I'm thinking about it. I'm using FoodNoms on my iPhone. That's how these things should work. They're backends. They're tools. They're how to get to the end result. They are not the technology.
This episode is brought to you by Insta360. Insta360 is the 8K 360-degree video camera, and I'll tell you when you want exactly that, or rather when I wish I'd had one with me. A few weeks ago now, I was in Hay-on-Wye, bookstore town on the line between England and Wales, and I'd like you to please picture me in the middle of the road, looking down at this perfectly framed shot of a town square full of book lovers, when precisely behind me, I mean exactly behind me, 4 bikers rode up into the town. Now, don't get me wrong, these were book-buying bikers, these were literature fans in heavy leather, but the bikes, the roar of the engines, the contrast between the peace inside of me and this roaring sound behind me, it was cinematic metaphor, and Insta360 would have got all of it. My iPhone could have got one side or the other if I hadn't switched it off too early and then put it in my jacket, but there are these times when 360 degrees of video is no gimmick, it is storytelling. Plus, I keep thinking about those visuals, but the sound of those engines, the Insta360's built-in wind guard, a steel mesh wind guard, would have captured them perfectly too. And if I had, for any reason, the urge to jump out of the way of these bikes, well, Insta360 has flow state stabilization and a 360-degree horizontal lock to give the smoothest shots possible. I mean, there are limits. I'm not saying it would have been as smooth as a dolly track if I were, clambering up a bookcase, but it was smooth. It would be so smooth. Don't listen to me about this. Go film something with the Insta360. And if you are among the first 30 people to buy the standard Insta360 package, you'll get a free invisible selfie stick. That's where you have a regular selfie stick, sure, but the Insta360 can digitally remove all sign of it from your recording, so you look like you're just talking into a really well-flown drone. Head now to store.insta360.com and use the promo code Apple Insider. store.insta360.com and the code Apple Insider. And thanks to Insta360 for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
Which brings me to Love From and OpenAI, which we'll get to the other stuff after this. I think this fits better here. My goodness, at this announcement. Did you watch the 9-minute video?
No, I didn't. I only heard about it just when I was covering the later, I was going to say leaks, the hints that have come out since somebody mentioned that there was a 9-minute video. In fact, Apple Insider covered it. And it sounds like, how can I say this nicely, since I do have a lot of time for Johnny Ive, that it was just like what in Britain we would call a puff piece, just aren't we great kind of video. Am I?
It was
harsh?
empty.
And it was, okay, for 9 minutes. Right.
Yeah, it was empty. It was very weird. Johnny Ive is, as much as he's been on a camera, he's usually talking away from the camera in a white room. And that honestly seems like what he was doing here. He was kind of talking at a void of space. They were at a cafe, but he was talking to that void in that cafe. And sometimes Sam Altman, but he every now and then he would look at the camera and realize there's a camera there, and then quickly look away, which is fine. We're not all huge camera people, but the thing was just so odd. I'm not sure who derived this video. It opens up with Johnny Ive like climbing down a set of stairs in San Francisco, and then doing that thing humans do when you're walking down a hill and you're swinging your arms really widely to like balance yourself. It wasn't the most graceful video, especially the opening. And over it is like Sam Altman waxing poetic about whatever, just I think poetry in general. He was just talking about how beautiful San Francisco was and how amazing technology is and how our world comes together and all this. You'll just have to watch the video. They put out a press release with a photo that could either be a marriage announcement, a baby announcement, some kind of other engagement. It's just, I'm not sure what it's supposed to entail, but it is not a business photo of two companies merging together. We're going to have it as a show art at some point in the show.
Yes.
But it's fascinating. The whole thing is so odd. I have a few pull quotes from that video.
Yeah.
So they're going to announce a family of AI products. We have a leak on that we'll get to in a second. Quote, "This is the best work our team has ever done. It is the coolest piece of technology the world has ever seen. And then there's a moment in the video where Sam Altman seems to forget that phones exist. And he discusses how, we're having a conversation here. And maybe I need to address ChatGPT. Well, I guess that means I'm going to have to stop everything we're doing, reach down, pull out my laptop, and open a browser and go to ChatGPT and ask it a question. I don't know if he's ever heard of an Apple Watch or an iPhone. He's sitting next to Johnny Ive, for goodness sakes. And it's just, it was such an odd thing because he's like he didn't say, I can pull out a phone and talk to my AI. No, he had to pull out a laptop and open a browser. Anyway, so that wasn't even the weirdest part, though. They announced that Johnny Ive started another new company 2 years ago called I.O., next to Love From. And I.O. is merging with OpenAI, and Love From is going to be the design firm for their technological aspects, and I.O. is going to be the AI portion that Ive is working with. So he's twofold working for OpenAI, probably making a very pretty penny. And $6.5 billion acquisition. Billion. My goodness. So what do you think of all of this, and what are these leaks we're talking about?
Oh, so many things. The 6.5 billion appears to be, it wasn't just, cash in used notes. It's some sort of stock thing. I don't quite know what the real value of that is, but obviously good. I mean, 6.5 billion is more than less. Look at the quality of information you're getting at a financial advice. Yeah, don't use me for financial advice, but 6.5 billion of anything seems quite good. It's just, I'm a little perturbed at this new device. I get mixed up here because sometimes Johnny Ive and Sam Altman talk about the new device, and other times, like you've said, the family of devices and things. But when they were talking about one new device, Johnny Ive said that it was the third device, that it would sit between your iPhone and your MacBook. But isn't that exactly, word for word, where the iPad is supposed to go?
Or Apple Watch.
Yeah, but remember Steve Jobs' launch of the iPad, he put it on screen in the middle
the third device.
of them, the whole justification of it. So you said Johnny Ive is fond of the iPhone. Maybe he just doesn't like the iPad. That'll tell him, kind of thing.
Well, here's what's... So 2026 is the announcement, and we have leaks from the supply chain suggesting mass rollout is 2027. Combination of things. Family of devices, sure, but the first device is going to be an iPod Touch not iPod Touch, iPod Shuffle sized device that you wear on a necklace, and it will run an AI. Now, this is sounding more and more familiar as we get into it. I wonder if you're going to make the same connection I did. They're going to have 100 million companions, AI companions. They're selling a necklace that you wear. I'm assuming that would contain any number of companions, or if not access to all of them via like a satellite connection or Wi-Fi, where you talk to it and get answers. And presumably it would also interact with your other devices, maybe even glasses. So does this not sound like that friend AI Pebble thing that people made?
That was the third thing I couldn't remember the name of. And actually, that sounded to me, I was quite critical of it just then when I couldn't remember it. But now you put it back in my head. I remember thinking, this artificial friend, I can actually see it being a boon for people who are lonely or isolated and things. So, yeah. Except, I didn't know the lanyard leak. What I'd heard was
that just happened.
Johnny Ive is said to be... what's the word? Not dismissive, not critical, not very rushing towards wearable devices. And also, what would the other thing be? That there was something about it being like this one little unit that could fit on your desk or go in your pocket and would be inobtrusive and would know everything about your surroundings and life. It made me think, this is really obscure, but Box from 1980s BBC drama called Star Cops. Terrible title, great drama. And this little unit that came around. And actually, no, more than that. It reminds me of things you and I have talked about before. I can't remember the term you used for it, where you have one little unit, one little device.
So, naked robotic core.
Thank you. Yes, it sounded like it could be that, but hopefully with a sense of humour.
I made a joke that this Johnny Ive is going to release a solid, smooth pebble, a white pebble that you just squeeze every time you want an AI to fix something in your life.
Okay, right. I'd
Maybe,
buy that.
yeah, maybe it'll just inject you with a little bit of LSD so you hallucinate and see an AI appear and solve your problem while you're just kind of passed out drooling on the couch. But I don't know. This thing, it sounds so silly to me. The thing about this is that's different, that I hate to say, and why it will be moderately successful, why it will make them some money, is because of who's attached to it and the company backing it. It's Snap Spectacles all over again. They sold 12 of them. It was an abject failure, but they still made enough news that people saw them, they existed, and it paved the way for glasses with cameras. It paved the way for a lot of other things. This device, because it's Johnny Ive, because it's OpenAI, and the millions of people that use and frankly worship OpenAI, right? It's Apple levels of cultum at this point. They will go buy it. Hopefully, it won't cost $3,000, but I'm sure people will go buy it. And I don't know. This is different from those other companies because those other companies were nameless entities that, yeah, sure, they had an Apple design guy or something, but they didn't have the backing of Google or OpenAI or Apple or Amazon, right? So it will be successful based on the fact that it's being it's being owned by already successful businesses with a vast following of people who hang on every word and announcement that company makes.
I actually didn't appreciate that OpenAI had that level of fandom. I suppose because I have no thoughts about it one way, well, apart from intellectual property rights and all that stuff. But Johnny Ive, I think, well, he's earned the reputation.
Sure.
I don't think it's an unwarranted thing that you would look to see what he would do next. But actually, that
he's a
reminds
great
me,
designer, hardware designer.
Yes.
But he's also what happened to Apple's software there in the middle, in the weird years, where everything got hidden behind one button kind of UI design. So he is legendary. That does not mean he is infallible, right?
Sure.
So we'll see what happens with this, if anything happens with this. I mean, heck, we could get to 2027 and they're like, actually, this is just something you inject into your brain. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
One thing I would like to just say, because I bothered to check this out, I've been reading reports saying that Johnny Ive has gone to work for OpenAI as part of this deal, and the way it's phrased, it sounds like he'd even left his own company, LoveFrom, to do it, and he hasn't. I checked with LoveFrom; he's still there. He is doing this, but also stuff with other clients as ever. So LoveFrom continues. Johnny Ive is just spreading the love from around. I was relieved to hear that.
I think that LoveFrom is going to work with them on the design, and Ive is a consultant. But I honestly, internally, don't think there's going to be that much attachment from Ive. I think it's mostly a name deal, and it's a good way for Ive to just get even more money for him to go pursue crazy designs. Maybe he'll finally design that toaster refrigerator. I don't know.
Well, I had the impression it was more than that because it was not OpenAI buying the consulting services of LoveFrom, but was actually buying the company for it. There was a greater.
They bought
degree
IO.
involved.
The LoveFrom
Yes.
is still independent. Yes. So,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. I'm sure Ive is involved as he always is in some odd way, or at least maybe he's assembling a team. Hard to say, but the whole thing is odd.
It's funny. Normally, when we talk about future technology and things like, I forgot what it's called now, like the Apple Home Hub and the things where it follows you around the house, things that Apple makes, you're quite keen on them, and I'm not. And this time, we seem to be the opposite way around. I am looking forward to whatever they come out of this thing.
I'll be interested to see what it is, and I'll pass judgment then. But I'm fully ready to just reject it, if only because I don't think we need an AI device because we already have. Like, this is in pursuit of a dead idea, right? This is like trying to make modular phones happen or something, right? This is one of those technologies that we've tried and it's unnecessary, people don't want to give up their phones, and they don't necessarily want another thing to lug around. If this was a watch, I could see it making sense because people like watches. If it was a set of glasses to, compete with Meta Ray-Bans or something, but it's a whole different thing. A necklace is the first device, and I'm sure they're going to have a whole host of devices. Maybe they'll even try to tackle an operating system on a phone at some point. But that's the thing. People already have their phones. They're just going to say, I can talk to these 100 million models on my iPhone if you let me. Why do I need to buy this thing? And maybe if they try to exclusivity, it'll just kill the whole project. Because if these 100 million AIs are locked down to the piece of hardware, then only the most devout are going to bother unless it's actually life-altering. But no matter how good a vocal assistant thingy is, if that's all it is you say something, it says something, I don't see it becoming anything, especially without an interface, right? Sure, like people are already running away with Google Gemini stuff, it's highly unrealistic. Before I go to bed, I'm going to tell it to make reservations and buy presents for my niece that likes My Little Pony, and also make sure it, calls the lawyer over a divorce, because that's honestly what this person sounds like. And it's just it's going to do like 7 of these commands that involve calling out and making purchases and doing all of these crazy fantastical things all in a row that you just say in a sentence and then close your eyes and go to sleep without checking, without watching it happen, without being any control whatsoever. That's what people think it's doing. It's just not. This technology does not exist that does that today. They demo it in a closed can, and that's great, but it just as always, the demo, it does not belie the reality. There's no way we're just going to... I won't say no way. It is highly unlikely that we're just going to hand over our credit card information and just let these things buy things on our behalf sight unseen. And if you do, it's your fault when something goes wrong, because that is just terribly minded. Versus, and that's in defense of why even bother with a third-party device when you have your iPhone, you have your Android phone, whatever, and it does everything on there. What's the point of this other device? And they will have to prove that point. And if it is a third device that sits in between everything else, why is it doing it? And what makes it special versus an iPhone or Android device? So they'll have to answer all of that. I'm quite skeptical. I don't think they're going to be able to thread that needle. There's no way. But we'll see.
I'm surprised that what's the opposite of skeptical? I'm not a believer. I keep coming back on this show to the failure of imagination on my part, because I'm conscious that before the iPhone came out, I was very happy with whatever rubbish phone I had, and I couldn't conceive of how life-changing something was. So I'm hopeful that we'll get more of those, and maybe this is one. I don't know.
Well, looking at Siri itself, Apple's working on making it basically a chat machine, a chat bot. I think the interface would be interesting if it was an iMessage, or maybe like you could have a permanently pinned ongoing chat with Siri and iMessage, or so that it's easily summable and maintains a history. Like that would be cool. And having it be aware of everything happening on your iPhone, from your calendar to your health app, like that makes sense to me. And having it have a home on the phone, maybe a Siri app, but I think it still makes sense in iMessage as well. That functionality is expected to come late or early next year, early 2026, as a later iOS 19 update. Like they're already working on that. That's part of your iPhone, iPad, Vision Pro, whatever. That's part of your Apple ecosystem. Apple's also being forced by regulators to allow other options onto the iPhone. So theoretically, OpenAI's 100 million options, you could just choose one of them to be your assistant on your iPhone instead of Siri, at least in the EU, but US regulators, I'm sure, are not far behind. And Apple is actually working actively, and this is probably going to be a big WWDC announcement I didn't get to earlier, but I think this is going to be huge. Apple's going to open up Apple Intelligence models to third parties. So outside of the functionality Apple offers, third parties will be able to take the model, train it on what they want to, and then have it run locally on device privately, right? So it just further eliminates the need for this other device. So they have a big task ahead of them. I'm really curious how they're going to pitch it. Why does anyone need it? We'll see.
How about we talk about the big software news of the week, which is, of course, Elgato's release of a virtual Stream Deck. Did you think I was going to say Fortnite? Okay.
I think the virtual Stream Deck is interesting. That's a macOS client. I still wish I could have an Stream Deck hardware connected to my iPad and then have all the buttons be Apple shortcuts. Like, that's the perfect mesh.
Yeah.
Still not possible.
That's
but
one thing, actually, Elgato is being very quiet about, because I want to say September,
like last
October.
year.
Last year, they said it was coming by the end of the year, and there are reasons why you can't use a Stream Deck on an iPad now, and I thought they found an extremely clever way around it. And so I was fully confident it would come, and it didn't, and instead we have this. I just want to say, a virtual Stream Deck. You know what a Stream Deck is? Hardware thing. I've got one in my hand right now. I'm pressing buttons as we record things, marking chapter points when the artwork goes in, stuff like that. Very useful. Just press it and know it's being recorded. The virtual one, I originally had no interest at all because it's just the buttons on the screen. So, yeah, isn't it like any other sort of shortcut or button anywhere? But you can have this thing appear on demand. So you press a key on your keystroke, you press a keystroke on your keyboard rather, and the whole virtual Stream Deck appears wherever your mouse is. So right under your mouse are all the controls for something, whatever you choose, and you press it, and as soon as you pressed it, it's gone again. And since that came out like 2 days ago, I've been adding more and more controls to all of my Macs.
Nice.
Just to get that stuff in it, and it's just really nicely done. So I genuinely am more interested than I am in Fortnite. But launchers, yes, yay.
Launchers are great. Shortcuts are great, and I would love to see this. This is a future prediction for iPadOS for me. So this is a sneak peek at a future Apple Insider Plus segment, I'm sure. But I really want Apple to open up display support on iPad to where we can have 2 displays, even 3. I know, my goodness. It has a M4 in it. Who knew it could run multiple displays? I think one of those displays could be a Stream Deck, right? Like, just basically have it run like Stream Deck could come out with basically a display with touch buttons that acts as an app or something that runs shortcuts. I don't know, but having a third physical device that is just there to run shortcuts, I press a button, the thing happens. That's cool. We've been doing that for years without interactive buttons, right? You just program a numpad to do different things. So you've been able to do this forever. It's just Stream Deck's made it really cool. I keep wanting to say Steam Deck, which is a video game console. But Fortnite, speaking of video games, is back on iPhone, iOS, iPad, whatever. I don't think it's on Vision OS. Let me look. But cool. They've returned. That's really all I got to say about it. I've never been a fan of the game. I've played a few times, got the winner chicken dinner thing, battle royale. You killed everyone. That's
I'm sorry, this is just syllables going past me now. Dinner.
Winner chicken dinner.
Leave it as a mystery. Okay.
So
all right.
It looks like the full game. They have all their little extra modes. They're if you haven't kept up with Fortnite, they kind of became Roblox in a way, and now there's like third-party game studios designing levels with like cars and battle modes and things. It's just Epic has made Fortnite into a gaming ecosystem where you go into it and play a many number of games or whatever. It's all there. And you can go play as Darth Jar Jar in the Star Wars mode and kill people with your red lightsaber. Great, it's all there. I downloaded it and I went to the purchase option for V-Bucks, the in-app currency, and interestingly, it shows a pop-up for equal-sized left square. Buy on the Epic Game Store and get a 20% bonus and Epic currency or whatever. And on the right side is just a button that says use in-app purchase, and it's equal sized. There is a benefit to the other button, and they explain that benefit in the button, but both options are there, and you can still use in-app purchase, and they are the same price, weirdly enough. So I don't know if that's Epic just trying to play nice and trying to let all this die down a little bit, but neat.
You mentioned Star Wars there in the version. I didn't know Star Wars was in Epic Games until this week, when I learned that Darth Vader's voice is in there, and it's AI generated apparently, and Equity is through the roof mad about this because it wasn't done with any agreement, and it's denied work from people who have previously voiced Darth Vader. I mean, James Earl Jones has died, but other people have done it since.
It's gone even worse than that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's AI powered, and people have convinced it to swear and use slurs, and recorded it and posted on the web. So now there's Darth Vader, James Earl Jones's actual voice saying these things.
That's horrible.
And so they removed the functionality very, very quickly. But that lawsuits, I'm sure, are still underway. But speaking of lawsuits, Apple and Epic seem to have come to a forced agreement, Apple being forced into agreeing with Epic. So no more court necessary, at least on this particular thing. Apple was actually being called on by the judge to prove why it hadn't approved Fortnite, and then Fortnite got approved the next day. So no more of that is necessary, but this doesn't mean the court case is over. Apple is still appealing. They're still going to push back on this, but I think we've reached, at least for now, the ultimate result. I still think Apple has to have a way to monetize its platform, even if people are using external purchases, and that's going to be the next battle. But it's hard to say exactly where they're going to land on that, because I don't know that even the judge knows. They just know what Apple was doing before was wrong, and they're going to have to try something else. I think if it's going to be anything, it's going to be monetization through annual fees and Xcode, I think.
Right. I mean, you said that before, and I thought it was a clever idea, but I can't see how much could that fee be that would pay back for this stuff. But
186,000 active developers or something like. I think I'm lowballing it. It might be more like 300,000, but there's a lot of active developers, and if all of them have to pay $100, it's something. It's not necessarily the money they were making before. It is a big part of their services revenue. But Apple losing out on a chunk of in-app purchase and Google's payment to them, it's going to be a bloodbath on a quarterly report very soon. But anyway, Fortnite, it's an okay game. The kids like it. I don't really care. I think there are better games, but I think it's the ecosystem and the not necessarily the gameplay. I understand the gameplay's fine. The whole thing started as you build forts and shoot each other past them or whatever. It's evolved greatly from there. But in its original iterations, I just always thought it was bland and stupid. But clearly now that they have like these Lego and Star Wars collaborations, it's turned into a whole different platform.
Whoa, wait, what? Lego Fortnite?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now you're turning me around. Okay, all right.
So
Lego
I might
Fortnite.
actually check it out just because I've never had an excuse to play it. And I have a brother-in-law that's like, I don't know, 16. He's plays Fortnite regularly with his dad, and I have other people in my life who play it, who's played it on console for years. So maybe I'll finally have an excuse to jump in, because I play Minecraft regularly still. I'm a Minecraft person all the way. But maybe I'll give this a shot. I hate Epic, but I mean, it's on the App Store now. Might as well take advantage of it. But I will say, William, as we close up, there is one game Epic should bring back to iPhone.
Bring back. They've had it before.
Yes.
I'm running through my usual list of chess, Sudoku, and crosswords, and
you might have
I'm
heard of this
likely.
one.
Okay.
This was quite the legendary release for iPhone.
Myst? No.
Myst is available on iPad.
Lemmings. No.
Nope. They don't own that. So Epic owns a game called Infinity Blade that I would love to have back on iOS. I will play it. I will play the second one, even though it was not. It was fine. The third one was odd. It had like a weird quest story branching arc thing, but bring it back. Epic, you have the ability now. I will pay you $5 for it. I really enjoyed Infinity Blade. No one else has made it. I don't know why nobody makes this game. Like, you don't have to, obviously don't steal it, but like make this thing where you swipe on the screen to counter blows in a certain way of a swordsman, right? Like, it was just so smart. And I don't think anyone's ever bothered to try and recreate that experience ever since it went away, because they probably don't want to get sued. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be back to talk more about Epic and Apple as Apple tries to find ways to circumvent this whole situation. But that was a good show, packed with lots of bigger items. WWDC, AI, Sam Altman and Johnny Ive staring lovingly at each other at a San Francisco cafe. It was a good time.
Please stop saying that. The show art with them in that, there's just something strange about it, and I can't even pin down what it is. They feel like they know something about me when they're looking at me in that way.
It's AI generated. They've actually never met.
Okay. I nearly believed you there. Okay, so yeah, weird, isn't it? Last week we were thinking that it was oddly quiet, although there were lots of little things going on. This time we're inching closer to WWDC, so most news slows down, and yet all of this has been going on. Who knows what the next 2 weeks will bring before the big day?
It's hard to believe. We're so close. I'm very excited.
Absolutely.
I'm holding off on installing any new apps because I already know that I'm just going to delete everything and go back to Apple apps because I actually, since just as a closer, since last WWDC, I usually go back to Apple apps because I want to see how the functionality works natively. So if I'm using Fantastical or Carrot Weather, I'll go back to whatever Apple offers. That lasted the whole year, actually. I've been toying around with a couple of features of a couple of different apps I already paid for, but I'm mostly still all in on Apple apps since last WWDC. And I don't know what that says about me and my workflows or third-party apps, but I'm going to hold off until after WWDC because I've seen a few interesting new third-party apps popping up that I want to check out, but I don't want to go in, set it all up, and then have Apple completely upend it with a really cool announcement during the event. So we'll see. I do want to say, if you guys are on Blue Sky, go check out this app called Finalist, Schedule Planner Finalist. They're about to release a version called Finalist 3. It looks interesting. I just wanted to give that a shout out because it's a really interesting take on Apple reminders, and it uses Apple's reminder system, but it has layouts in it that looks similar to kind of a planner with the reminder bubbles and stuff like that. I just thought it was neat, and I want to try it out after WWDC is over. So
cool. I'm quite intrigued by that. If you can tear me away from Fortnite for a minute, I'll go look as well. All right. Okay.
So, William, where can people find you on the internet?
Usual best place for me is over email, william@appleinsider.com. And I've got to say, by the way, I was reached out on that email address. Sean Ryan emailed with some advice about podcast audio things, and it was like a light bulb moment for me. It fixed, I believe, the last remaining problem I had with it. So thank you hugely for that. And I think I'm actually up to date now with emails, but william@appleinsider.com is best, and I'm on YouTube a lot, 58 Keys. What about you?
Well, I'm on Blue Sky, of course, Mastodon. I'm still writing my blog. If I ever find more hours in the day, I'm going to publish more articles than my weekly summary. But I want to note that I've gotten the hang of the summary thing, and it's turned into more of a examination rather than just saying what the news is. I kind of dive a little bit deeper and give more of my opinions on it. So I've been enjoying writing those. It's been interesting because I can kind of do that with Apple Insider, but it's harder because when I'm at work, I have to do the work things. So there's just only so many hours in the day. So it's nice to be able to explore different ideas there. So if you guys haven't looked at that, it's a very tiny little thing. I renewed the Hover and Ghost accounts on that. So that'll at least be around for another year as I experiment with my work outside of Apple Insider. I just want to have a place that exists on the internet that is just me. It's nice. But of course, reach out on Blue Sky, reach out via email, wes@appleinsider.com. And as always, we're going to talk about podcast reviews. We have Apple Podcast reviews here from 5 stars. These are really nice ones. M. Hotman 31. Without a doubt, the best Apple wow, I ruined it. With 1 star. Without a doubt, the best podcast on Apple. Wes and William have been truly amazing, and I've gained more and more confidence in their ability to discuss future of Apple rumors and expectations for what consumers should expect from upcoming releases. Keep it up. Looking forward to the next episode soon. So thanks for that very kind review.
Thank you. Yeah, cool. All right.
If I can, read. And another 5-star review from Mr. Cat with 2 T's. Simply the best. I've been listening to the podcast for years. Wesley and William are great together and each provide unique perspective. They've appreciated the insights on the national and international landscape and analysis of what I need to gain a deeper understanding of the world of Apple. And as a bonus, they are just funny. The chemistry between the two of them is rare among podcast hosts. Keep up the good work. So thanks for that very kind review.
No, that's it. I've got to go back through and edit today's podcast and insert more jokes. Perhaps I can ask AI to generate more. I like the zoo one earlier. Yeah. So thanks for the tip there. Okay.
It only has 1 animal, William. Only 1.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say it again. Yeah, I did. We did get an odd review. I don't know why this character keeps leaving a review every week, but they Apple has a feature you can update podcast reviews, and this person updates it, I think, on a weekly basis now. I'm not going to mention who they are. You can go read it if you want. It's silly, but the content this week was just amusing to me. They were upset that we keep talking about Pride bands. And challenged us to actually buy one and wear it because I think they believe we're virtue signaling or something. I got to say, I think that's pretty much exclusively the one. It's my comfort band. I bought the braided Pride band loop last year, and that's my go-to if I'm not trying to be fashionable or wear a link bracelet or some specific color. My go-to is just the braided Pride band. It's very comfortable. It goes with everything, and it matches a lot of my Apple. I have Apple Rainbow memorabilia shirts, so it goes with that.
I've got a joke. I really like the Pride design thing. I would be wearing a Pride band, except I am strapped for cash. Yeah, yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, you'll be using it tomorrow. You know you will. Okay.
Yeah, puns are the lowest form of comedy, but.
I love a good pun. You know John Cleese's 3 rules of comedy: no puns, no puns, no puns. But I love a good pun. I mean, Milton Jones comedy, yeah.
No, I don't want to give too much air to the more meaner people, but I just found that one amusing because I have friends, family members, and even a fiance technically in the LGBTQ community, and it's just amusing that people get so upset about these things. And I just wanted to peg that at the end here that nope, fully support that stuff, actively wear it, and I don't care what you think. So moving on, just Apple Insider Plus. So guys, if you are listening to this show and you pay, you get an ad-free experience. You get Apple Insider Plus. At the end, we're going to be discussing Vision OS 3, our wish list. Well, at least my wish list for that. William's just going to nod as I speak about this. Don't worry, I'll let him talk about it. And I want to thank our sponsors once again, NordLayer and Insta360. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys next week.